All right. Welcome to the District 3 podcast with your host, Councilwoman Shamika Parrish-Wright. I am Dre Dawson, and we have a special guest. We'd like him to introduce himself.
Peace.
I just threw you in there like that. I just threw it in there.
I'm JeCorey Arthur. I'm a councilman for Metro Council District 4, representing neighborhoods that span as far west in the Parkland around 32nd. We go south through the California neighborhood, go across that a little bit of the old Louisville neighborhood. We have Smoketown, Phoenix Hill, Butchertown, the East Market District or the Nulu area. We have the Clifton Heights area almost near Zorn Avenue. We have downtown, the Central Business District, and we have my favorite neighborhood, the Russell neighborhood, where I call home. So we got about a dozen different neighborhoods and some business districts in our district, and I rep them.
You do.
That's right. The
Very
councilman.
well.
Yeah.
The councilman.
They're going to retire your jersey after this year, ain't they? They just go put a little sign in the D4 seat. Yeah, forever JeCorey seat. That's what they going to do. I mean, how's it been being like, you know, I can't remember the last time we had a super, I don't know if it's been in our generation, but like a real powerful black man in Metro Council fighting for the people, man.
I appreciate that. I don't know if our history is shared as much as it should be or in a way that it should be. Most of what I know about the history of black politics in Louisville, I learned through 2 centuries of black Louisville.
Yeah, Dr. Hudson.
Yeah, Dr.
Man,
J. Blaine
rest
Hudson.
in peace, man.
King Clay, Marvin. I don't want to mess his last name up, so I'm just going to call him Marvin, the photographer. But that book taught me so much and inspired me to get involved at a deeper level politically. But, you know, when I think of our history, I do consider, you know, the Charles Andersons of the world, the Manfred Reeds of the world, the Jackie Floyds, the Attica Scotts, the Gerald Nields of the world. Mm-hmm. You know, there is a deep, rich political history. But like you said, what does that look like recently? Yeah. I was just talking with somebody the other day, an elder who said they felt like they dropped the ball and they never passed it to the next generation. And they're a boomer. And I think our boomers might have been the last generation to really get politically active and busy and focused on our collective uplift. Generation X, with the exception of some very powerful people that I'm sharing the space with, for the most part, it feels like they've been absent and they've kind of worried about themselves as individuals. And I say that because I have so many aunts and uncles, my mama, my daddy, you know, they're Gen X. And I think part of that is because when we look at the political landscape across the country, we're talking about people who were raised during that crack epidemic, who were either, you know, forced to sell it or, you know, driven into doing it, and communities totally destroyed
because they were targeted.
Exactly. And then, you know, you got black celebrity that comes to the rise where it's like, you know, you have these shining examples of what you're supposed to be in the bourgeoisie and the elite Negro class that came up. So all of a sudden it's about what can I do to get it by any means, and to hell with the rest of my community.
Right.
I think that really wreaked havoc on Gen X, and then millennials, largely coming from that generation, just kind of continued that. I think Gen Z is trying to pick it up where the boomers left off to a certain extent. And I think we're seeing a new turn and a political uprising that really was kind of ignited in 2020 and beyond. But I hope we don't get away from that, because it feels like every single year it fades away a little bit. Like people have forgotten Breonna Taylor. They've forgotten George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery and whatnot. So we just trying to continue that work and build on it.
Even when go ahead, Councilman.
My spirit was just moved hearing you say, I do a lot of work and have a lot of great experience doing that work. But when I travel and I'm in there, and I believe in academia, but my father raised me, which he was a boomer. My mother's a boomer, was raised to, you know, kids are to be seen, not heard. My father was worried because he was in the street life. He didn't want me in the street life. But he also knew that there were some values from the street life that he wanted me to have, even in my quest for academia. So he made sure I was book smart and street smart. But I was at a conference in New York. They invite me. Now that I'm in this director's role with Vocal, I'm being invited in more funder spaces. And these funders are asking about people with direct lived experience. So everything you just explained is my life with some other stuff added to it. But I'm sitting in this conference and we're talking about people, and we're talking about people with substance use issues, with overlapping issues with mental health, housing, and all of that. And then we're talking about our why. And you organize, you have to start with your why. If I do a one-on-one with you and I'm looking to recruit you into my organization or to see what you want to do, I'm going to ask you, what's your why? What brings you to this work? And so we were in there, we were having that conversation, and they were wondering, because studies and data, the data tells you I shouldn't be before you today, especially not in the hats I wear, right? But they say, what made the difference, right? Did Nancy's war on drugs, commercials work for me? No. Did the DARE, I was in the DARE program, did that work for me? No. But I was the daughter of a crackhead. I was the daughter of what the community scene was, a crackhead, somebody who was in and out of jail, 40 of his 56 years on this earth, somebody who struggled with understanding this addiction that he had, or many addictions, because it wasn't just the crack, but crack became the most prevalent. And when that happened,
then the byproducts.
The byproducts of it, right. And so even in that, from that jail cell, writing me letters, getting pictures drawn, making sure he communicated every birthday, sending me quotes, sending me magazines, sending me books, introducing me to the Harlem Renaissance, introducing me to hip-hop. He was my introduction to rap, hip-hop, to even L.A. Gear. Right? He got out of jail and saw that we were wearing shoes that came out of a drugstore in a bin, and he just was so angry because he had a whole idea of what life should be, but our reality was that it was poverty. So to hear you say that, when people say, Shamika, why you do so much, why you slow down, don't do this, I got something to prove, right? Mm-hmm. The children of crackheads have something to prove, right? Mm-hmm. And it does go with what you said with the individualism. Like, I didn't do it, but my notion was there's something wrong with a lot of my folks. So on my academia side, I want to become a behavioral psychologist, because when I was pulled out of the room or had to deal with social workers and psychologists, none of them looked like me. Mm-hmm. So I knew that's what I wanted to do on the academia side. On the community side, I saw a lot of people who weren't able to articulate their needs, weren't able to say, what they needed, weren't able to get to the next level, needed some kind of liaison or navigator. And I said, well, whoa, I want to help, because if we help people make the connections, then they're going to make the best choice for their life. Right. So here I am in the middle of this, but with statistics and data, and now a mother at 15, nobody is hearing me, right? Nobody is seeing me until I do something. I act out, right? Until I end up in jail defending myself. Still wasn't seen, wasn't looked at in that courtroom. And now, as you see, when we get older, I saw this, and I said this to Ann Braden, who was a white abolitionist woman fighting against racism, racist practices, how I met Dr. J. Blaine Hudson and his wife, Bonnie Hines Hudson. She said to me, like, you keep waiting on them to pass you this torch. They don't know how to do that. You got to take it. Mm-hmm. She said, be respectful as possible, but you got to take it. Because I was waiting my turn. I was at the Alliance like, give me a shot. And then I saw that moment duplicated during the Justice for Breonna Taylor movement to bring it back around. I'm sitting there. I'm like, I'm in a great role. I can use resources and discretion and do everything I need to do. And these young people are coming up to me. One, they want to be our protectors. I'm sending them to Dre, like, let's train them. Tell them to watch. If the same car keeps circling around, make note of that. And Dre starts working with them. Then I have some young people that are like, I don't know what to do. I want to do something. I want to lead marches. But they won't pass me the bullhorn. And one of those young people was Travis Najdi. Mm-hmm. Started, when I first met him at the park, bringing PPE in little baggies with people, like, I want to pass out PPE. I want to give people masks. I want to give people what they need. Then talking to him, learning, he didn't think he would live past 26. He said, I don't think I will live to even be Breonna's age. But I found something in this work. He found himself in this movement. Then coming to me and saying the same things I said to Ann Braden when I was in college and I had just started with the Alliance. Like, I want to lead. What can I do? I want to lead this march. I said, okay, Travis, you have to take the opportunity. They're not just going to pass it to you. When you get that bullhorn, don't put it down.
Yeah. It seems like,
and he did it.
Rest in peace to Travis, man. He was a great brother, and it seems like you did the same thing in 2020. Like, I remember you being up there with your shotgun, and you know what I mean. You with the bullhorn, and you know what I mean.
I had no idea that would be said. That's not what I thought you were going to say. I saw him there many times with the people.
Well, I was doing security, so I recognize everybody with guns. I make sure I'd make a note of everybody with guns. But no, just like, taking that lead and you just ran with it, bro. Like 4 years later, you still running.
We running for our lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every day. And I'm blessed that I was able to even run for office, because you learn a lot just being a candidate. And I'm sure, like, running for mayor, and you already organizing, all across the nation, but to go across the city and talk to people about their issues as a candidate, I mean, there's really no opportunity like that, because you really get to engage with people at a deeper level. You get to really understand what they want and what they need. Because for the most part, they're direct. It's like, I want your vote. Okay, well, this is what I want.
Oh, yeah, they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you.
You're a millennial, right? You represent the youth. And so you are, as far as I know, the youngest council person that I've met since I've been here over 20 years.
Yeah.
And here's what the reason I do all I do is for you. It's for all the generations under me. And what I do with the boomers and the people that are older than the boomers, that's about legacy, because I know that that's important to them. So I ran a small business, which was killed during the Justice for Breonna Taylor movement, but I ran a small business where I help people with their legacy projects. Because what I found out when I was younger, like you, both of you, because he's a little younger than me, what I found out is that a lot of these boomers and older folks were, and what I say seasoned, because old seems something like you discard, but seasoned folks were in the way because that was it, right? This was their speaker box. This was their opportunity, and they were waiting their turn because they were told during the civil rights movements and the movements before then, you got to wait your turn. You come in, you do all, do the work, do whatever, the grunt work, all of that. And then when it's your turn, you'll get it. I'll let you know when it's your turn.
Yeah.
And they waited. And then their turn didn't come. People start dying in office. People just didn't pass the baton and then they were like, wait. So then while they're still waiting to get their turn, here comes these Xers and these other folks who are like, what are we going to do? Yeah. And I came into the movement like really green, because I was like, oh, I don't need all this stuff I learned to survive and all the street stuff. I'm in this movement. I'm with a bunch of weirdos who give a damn, who are fighting for change, who are fighting for social justice. I don't need all that stuff. So I came in very green, started working with Ann. Then they attacked me. They were just like, who are you? Like, you a single mom, you got all these kids. Like, how dare you? And I didn't attach to Ann on some white savior stuff. I was freaking impressed that somebody this late in life working. And here's the thing. My environment in Cincinnati, poverty was our link up, right? Like, I grew up with poor white people who was just as poor as us and poorer. And so that's what we did. Yes, there was racism, racist practices, institutional racism, but it wasn't in your face. I would say I've seen more racism in my face in Louisville and in Kentucky than I've ever seen. So I have already worked across lines of differences. And then when I was in the drug life, I had already worked with people with money and all of that stuff. So when I came here, this was like my baptism into, I had done some organizing around Hope 6 and the gentrification and all of that. But this was my introduction into civil rights. And so I was just like, oh, yes, I'm ready. I'm showing up every day. My practicum said only do 20 hours. I was doing 40, 60, because I really was like, I really want to learn from these folks. But because there was some unresolved issues with not just Ann, because she wasn't perfect, black women, dark-skinned women felt like Ann and some of the other folks only lifted up the men, or only, there was a white older woman ghostwriting the movement. There was all these things happening. But when I came into there, I saw a woman taking action, moving, and doing work, and that's what I wanted to be a part of. So I had Bonnie Hines Hudson, who was one of my mentors, but she said, Shamika, I got to step to the side. Blaine is now the dean, and I need to go be the dean's wife. So, I lost her. So we not completely, but then I started working more with Ann, and I was like, oh, well, let's do this. Then Ann dies, so you have this big matriarch, this big person that dies, and it don't just gut the alliance, it guts the local civil rights movement, because she was at one moment, just like Martin Luther King, went from pariah to being accepted to being worshipped. But in this time, this was a crucial time for the organization. And then now I'm like, I can't let the Kentucky Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression die on my watch, because now I feel like I got to carry this, because it can't die. So then now I'm working to try to save it, while I'm being attacked from the inside, and then I'm working to build relationships and coalition work through the outside. Fast forward, so I start from an intern to an organizer to a volunteer, all this board member. Then we get elected in 2020. Dre, myself, and Tyra Walker, we get elected as co-chairs. Because when I was approached to run again, because this was my third time running, so I ran for political office. This council seat was my third time. I ran for school board in 2019. And then I ran for mayor in 2022 and ran for this in 2020. So I said, well, I'm going to run to be the Alliance chair, because I know how nonprofits can turn on themselves if you don't have the right leadership. And I said to Dre and them, only way I'm doing this is if it's co-chairs. We accepted that. Mm-hmm. COVID hits. And we're a civil rights. We're not a service-based organization. We don't provide things. But I was like, what are we going to do? We got to talk to people. This is a time people are at home. People are trying to figure things out. So we started making PPE kits, delivering them at Kroger's, because my fear was like what happened in Detroit when that security guard or someone was killed for not letting someone into a Family Dollar, and then someone got killed because they didn't have a mask or PPE. And I said, if we don't watch this, this is going to happen here more and more, because the city didn't seem like it was ready to handle it and know what to do. The state didn't seem like it was ready to handle it. We were just trying to get them to let people out of jail and reduce all of that. So it was an amazing time to do that, and we fought with our board, because this wasn't our normal work. And that's the thing about, and we're still fighting with the board.
Even after
what's the generational makeup of the board?
That is what you explained
exactly
earlier.
what you was talking about earlier. And I felt this too, because even when I go back to U of L, like when I was there, it was really immersed. At least the black student population were immersed in academics as well as social justice, right? It was a big social justice thing. And we didn't even have a Breonna Taylor going on back then. We just knew that we're at a PWI, we're a minority here, and we got to make things fair, because they won't give us anything. And so that baby boomers holding that baton for dear life, right? And just not wanting to pass it. That mentality it wasn't just at U of L. I also see it in Metro Council. I see it in the community, whether it's nonprofit work, whether it's political work, or whether it's just, a business or corporation, right? It's like the baby boomers are like, I don't want to give this baton, or you ain't ready. Wait your turn. And it's just like, well, hold on. You got these people that are ready, you know what I mean? And when are you going to give them their chance? And if you don't, then you're going to lose all that fire. Like, don't forget, the civil rights movement was made up of the youth. It wasn't it wasn't grandma and grandpa out there getting hit with the water hose. Right. It was 17, 18-year-old Markeisha and Kevin and them, you know what I mean? And so that same mentality still goes on, even through the Kentucky Alliance, right? Because most of that, I remember being recruited by Kentucky Alliance when I came out of college. And the first thing I said, because I was the president of the U of L NAACP, I saw all the old heads at the NAACP meeting. I was like, this ain't the place where I need to be. And it's not because I'm in this room with the old heads. It's because you all are stuck in your ways. And you keep saying, I want youth. We need youth. We need youth. But you don't listen to the youth, right? You're not bringing them in. You're not taking their ideas. You're not letting them run with projects. Whether they pass or fail, they got to learn.
Right.
You're setting them up for leadership. And they weren't setting anybody up for leadership. So, like, I'm interested to know what's your take on like the future of the Metro Council, right? Because after this term, you know, we're not going to have any black men. We're going to be bipartisan, right? We're changing the makeup of some of the black districts, right? So what do you think are we heading in that hole where we're going backwards, regressing versus progressing?
Well, part of the reason I want to leave is because I want to take everything I've learned and, you know, I almost treat the 4 years like a 4-year college degree. Yes, you know, sir. I study Metro Council. Yeah, I'm going to take everything I know about city government and be even more impactful, even more of a threat on the outside organizing people. Yeah. And I think one of the issues that I've identified, you know, through the movement in 2020, before that, after that, right now, is a lot of people don't understand how to play a role. And we talked about lanes earlier, and it's not necessarily about staying in a lane. It's about, you know, I'm a musician, being in concert band, being in marching band, the drumline percussion ensemble. Everyone had a role to play.
That's right.
And it wasn't like someone had a more important role to play. Everyone had a specific role to play. Even if you're in sports, your point guard got a specific role compared to your center.
That's what makes the music. That's what makes the team.
Exactly. We got to learn how to work in that way, because I feel like I've been in so many spaces where people want to organize and they want to do everything. They want to be on the megaphone. They want to make all the calls to the media. They want to make the signs. They want to get a speech at the rally.
And they ain't even good at half that stuff. It's like
they want to do everything. But when you think of that ensemble, if I'm in the orchestra, you got your string section with your violins. You got your brass section with the tuba, trombone, trumpet, and whatnot. Shout out to the tuba. It's a tuba thing. You know, I'm a percussionist. So I'm in the back playing all the, you know, the vibraphone, marimba, and whatnot.
I play these words.
I'm
a lyricist.
You like a baritone.
Exactly.
But
I did used to sing in the church choir. I was good there.
I thought we could make a little band. That's all I was saying.
But I just say that because, like, I feel like we've kind of lost the idea of people playing a role. And when you approach organizing in that way, you know, you kind of get in where you fit in. You work on that skill and you develop it. I think it helps everyone, going back to what you said about making the music, it makes it that much better. But if one person is trying to do everything, you know what I mean? Y'all probably seen the videos or the cartoons or the one-man band man where he got the bass drum and he got the trumpet and he got the cymbals attached. You can only make so much kind of music, right? Yeah. And you're never going to excel in any of those skills. You know what I mean?
But you ain't
making music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I like that.
So, you know, even Jordan had Pippen.
Yeah. That's
right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Right. So you got to really understand your role. And I think the same thing of Metro Council. To a certain extent, when people send a message to everybody on Metro Council, you really send a message to nobody unless somebody picks it up and they want to work on it. But you got things that you're passionate about that are priorities in your district. I have things I'm passionate about that are priorities in my district. We need to organize the Metro Council in a way that we know, okay, District 3 is going to focus on these several issues. District 4, that district's going to focus on these issues. Councilwoman Paula McCraney's a businesswoman.
Right.
She could focus on small business issues. Councilwoman Barbara Shanklin's an educator. She can focus on, you know what I mean? Like, we all have skill sets that we could organize ourselves around to work on those policy issues. And we haven't done that yet. Everybody wants to do everything. The community is a direct reflection of the representatives up here at City Hall doing the same thing, and that's why we have a lack of organization.
Yeah. Well said. I always used to say that too. Like we're fighting a giant. We're fighting a giant, but everybody wants to attack the leg at the same time. And it's like, well, there's more of us than this giant. Somebody get a finger, somebody get a toe, somebody go for the throat, somebody, you know what I mean? Like we have to be organized and synced in that attack. You can't just be attacking the throat and, you know, he's able to fight you because ain't nobody else moving. I see it with my kids all the time. Sometimes when we wrestle after class, like we do it for real. Like you start off one-on-one and then you start getting good. Then I start putting 2 and 3 people on you, right? You got to know how to get jumped, right? And how to move with that. And sometimes when I put those 2 and 3 people on you, what happens is not the one person gets confused, but the 3 people get confused because they never made a plan, right? And they'll be like, all right, here we go. And then they'll just wait for the clap. And with no plan, you see the confusion as soon as it starts, right? Like one's going for the body and then another one's just like, I don't know where I fit in. You know what I mean? And I think we work the same way in the community a lot, especially when we're attacking all these things, like how you attack with vocal through the substance abuse, right? And then we're attacking through education. Because they're killing our DEIs, right? And then we're also attacking in the streets where the police are killing our people, right? We're killing each other, right? We've got to have plans of attack. And we can do this with these organizations, but if we're not talking, because all of this overlaps, all of this is part of the same giant, right? We can't just talk about drugs and addiction and not talk about poverty.
Facts.
Right?
So trauma is the real gateway drug, too, that we don't get to talk about. So when you were explaining what's happened to the boomers, a whole lot of trauma, Councilman, a whole lot of trauma that they've continued to pass on. But I want to, so we clear, you got your bachelor's degree. Do you plan to come back for a master's? Because that's what everybody asks me. Do you plan to come back to politics for a master's degree at some point?
Well, I think the politicians aren't the only people who should be involved in politics. You know, I love Nina Turner's quote about you might not do politics, but politics will do you.
I've been telling people that.
It's so genius because people will say, well, I don't want to be involved and I don't want to vote. I don't want to do a politics. Okay, well, somebody's making decisions whether or not you want to get involved.
Shout out to Dr. Ricky Jones, who I took one of his classes while I was at U of L that said politics, and I don't know if he got it from somebody, but politics are who gets what, when, where, and how.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So and I was on Nextdoor, and I was posting about stuff, and they were like, we don't do politics here on Nextdoor. I said, but everything you're talking about on here is politics.
It's political.
You want to know who's picking up your trash. You have some security issues. You want to know who's representing you. All of that's politics.
Politics just means power.
They're doing you.
The play of power.
Yes.
Right? Yep. Just like martial arts just means combat. The art of combat. That's what politics is.
And that definition is spot on. It originated with a political scientist, I think his name is Harold Laswell, who wrote a book about the resources and the way that decisions are made. To answer your question, I do not want to run for political office ever again, but I do want to use what I've learned, like I said, to organize community.
I think that's
because if our communities are organized, and when I say community, to be clear, that could be a neighborhood association.
Yeah. It
could be a nonprofit organization. It could be a church. It could be a business association. Whatever your community is that you belong to, if those are more organized, it doesn't matter who's in office.
That's right.
Yep.
Example. Tonight, the NAACP is hosting a 2024 election meeting to talk about ways that we can approach this upcoming election and get organized.
Yeah, I thought that was...
That starts at 6:30 p.m.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
At 6 p.m., the Urban League is hosting a political education event. Why are those happening at the same time?
Right.
And shout out to Felicia and shout out to Ryo. I love y'all and y'all doing incredible work.
Right.
We have to do better as a community to line
Councilman.
up.
Thank you.
To line up.
I've been trying to do that
like.
for 20 years.
It's
I tried
hard.
to start a movement calendar.
Preach,
back
brother.
before we had all of this Google stuff. I was sitting in there with the Alliance, and Forsooth used to have this paper where they put all these events that were happening. And I said, can we at least organize around all of our annual events?
Well, you know what?
And then our shared events so that we're not overlapping, because it'd be the usual suspects showing up, and then you feel torn. And then if you're not there, first thing people say, Shamika, why you wasn't at this meeting? Because every day I got to reprioritize. Well, do I go here, and then do I go here?
Oh, I know. I do your scheduling,
you sure
too.
do.
Yeah,
and
I
then
know.
with the transportation issues, like now I don't have a car. So getting to the next thing could be even more challenging. So you are so right. And that's something that I've been wanting our local movement, because we're small enough that we can do it.
Absolutely.
We can definitely do it, but folks have to commit. And another thing why that doesn't happen, Councilman, is because people are not working on planning and preparation.
Planning ahead. Yeah.
Ahead.
Right.
I, as an organizer, I do not like planning events within 30 days. If we're doing an emergency event within 30 days, because I work from backwards. So I'm working from that event and then I'm working backwards. So you got to work on all these things. When you're planning events and they're within 30 days, like I see sometimes I went to some meetings they had and I said, how did you get community to notified to be here? They said, we sent out an email that went to 450 people.
That ain't nothing.
That ain't it. You must, as an organizer, you must use every form of communication. I tell people, I'll talk to you in a can and a string. You have to have digital. You have to have print. You have to have emails. And you have to include contact information, because seasoned folks, They want to look for that number and that address, even if it's just to ask you the same thing that's on the flyer.
Yep.
And your offices, and I was telling Ben this, our anthropology graduate, and he said he went somewhere and somebody was like, "You're an anthropology graduate and you're doing this?" And I said, "Ben, I need you to see the value in what you're doing. The fact that people can pick up the phone and call our office and get a human or get a response within 24 to 48 hours. That's setting precedence. People used to say to me, "How do you get people to do a lot of things?" It's the consistency. Is if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And if I can't, I'm going to let you know, and I'm going to be there to do it. When we were at that park, it'd be some days, and what I post online is who I post to be in person. So if I post that we're going to be there from 11 to 7, I'm going to be there. Because if you don't build that consistency, because many people are so used to being let down, lied to, and just not respected enough for people to even give them the benefit of the doubt to follow up and respect
just
their
being
time.
Professional.
And just being, and here's the thing. Because I'm seen as this agitator, this outside organizer, people forget that there's levels of professionalism still built in what I do.
Yeah.
So you're expecting me to be this, I'm going to beat on your door. Yes, I'm going to send you an email. Yes, I'm going to make that call, but I'm going to respect your time, and I'll try to do that. But the consistency is what helped us organize the longest sustained movement, showing up and being there. And guess what? When somebody, so they said, "Shamika, you're doing too much. Let us take over." "Okay, you're going to be there from 11 to 7? "Yes." I said, "Okay, I'll share about it. I'll share what the supplies are. My son said I can't go out today because I got to be with him. You do it." Guess what? 11:30 comes.
They ain't there.
They texted me, "Unhoused people. Look, Shamika, it's 11:30. Nobody's been here. Like at 12:30. Nobody's getting here at 1 o'clock. Well, John just showed up, but he didn't have none of the stuff that y'all said." I care about my name to those the people who are unhoused, as well as I do in the boardrooms. If I respect the people in the boardrooms to give them time or send a replacement or make sure something happened, I'm going to do the same in those streets. That consistency is how you build the trust. Because I do think you need to earn the trust. And I want to earn my trust with everybody that I meet. And if I value, was it Muhammad Ali that said that you're going to treat the doorman like you would treat the CEO? That's how I feel. And that isn't always happening, especially in these elected roles where it should be happening. If we're in an elected role to represent people, that has to happen. We have to be consistent. We have to show up, and we have to answer. So I said, Ben, take pride in that, because guess what? Somebody will remember that, they answered my call. They showed up at my house. They followed back up. They sent the email. That goes so much further than you just showing up and say, "I got this graduate degree. I know everything that I'm talking about." But how does that play out in the streets? How does that play out in the community? How does that play out in your role? So I think you're powerful in what you're doing, because I get it. When people say it to me, I'm like, "Y'all, we done lost him." But the thing is, the value added on what you can bring to somebody looking to run and what you can bring to the communities that are looking to be organized is powerful, because that means, like you said, we can hold anybody accountable that's elected, because we're going to have people that show up, and then they're going to be consistent. And we're the most consistent voting base, because even if we're being abused by the parties or whatever, we still showing up and we're voting.
You said something that reminded me of something I heard a sister say in one of our freedom schools. She was talking about connecting with people before you try to bark at them and try to inform them about things. She was saying that people don't care what you know until they know you care.
That's right.
Well,
and that's exactly what you just said. Talking about being consistent and showing up is really key.
Until they know who you are. You know what I mean? A lot of times when I'm going into places and new spaces and I need something out of this space, the first thing I don't do is say, "Hey, I need this from y'all." The first thing I do is say, "How can I help y'all?" First of all, you know what I mean? And then show up and show out with that too. You know what I mean? We had Damarion over here in the last podcast, and he talked about just me being with him his first few years, and we're not even being paid to do this camp, but we're in it for the work. And even not being paid, I never missed a day. I never let the attitude of the kids devalue what I brought to the table, right? And then neither did he either, because that was showing up and showing out.
And you knew your why. You knew why you were doing it.
We're here. And I got to show this to the kids. right? That we got to show this, not even just people in community, but to the kids. Like, if your word is your bond. That's how we grew up. Your word is all you got in this world. As a young man, I was taught is your word and your balls.
Oh, yeah.
See, he know the same thing.
I heard that from the rapper Scarface.
That's right.
And that sample,
That's right.
the intro in his out.
That's right. That's a hard beat.
But that's true.
People don't know that I met Councilman Arthur as the artist, 1200, right?
Yeah.
And I was so impressed, and I would go to the concerts and the Louisville Music Awards. And then one of my daughters started dating someone who participated in the AMP program. They're together. They got a 5-year-old son. And I just, when Mitez was like, I know him and I love Mitez's music, because it reminded me in the beginning of Will Smith being intentionally the best album. I was back then I was in the album covers, but the best album cover was Will Smith leaning against this sign. The pole had West Philly and it had Hollywood. And, he leaned against the sign. He got his hat on. And the dilemma, we know he went to Hollywood and was successful. Right. He really wanted to be successful in music. And he helped put a lot of people on that we don't even get to talk about. But the fact is that, one, when he first started rapping, he chose not to use curse words, which was huge, because back in the all I have is this, like all those Scarface days, all of that, it was hardcore, right? So that was a huge decision to make. And then what it takes to not use the cuss words as fillers and all of that. So the skill that it took. And here's the thing. I don't like all of his songs and all of his albums, but I love what that picture depicted on, because we all hit those crossroads, right? I can choose to continue to be this artist, keep chasing the music in that way and do this, or I got an avenue that I can take and that'll help put more people on. And I think that's where I see you when you told me you made that decision to go and do more organized.
Is that how you feel? You went from West Louisville to Hollywood, downtown?
He's been Hollywood.
Well, I still live in West Louisville. Born, raised, and still living in West End, Louisville. Born and raised. No, it's funny you say that, because sometimes I'll be like walking around the neighborhood and somebody will see me and say, "It's nice to see you in the hood," and I'm like, "Bro, I live here."
Right.
Right.
I work here. I live
never
here.
left.
My kids go to school here, daycare here. I don't feel that way, but I get them, like, metaphorically what you're saying as far as, like, I feel like City Hall could almost be considered. Some people think it might be Hollywood.
It is Hollywood.
It's more like Holly Grove.
Yeah, you had it right. You had it right the
more
first
like
time.
City Hell, you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, it's interesting being here, being with the people who make decisions, being in the halls of power, in a place where decisions were made about our ancestors.
Yes.
Yep.
From slavery to segregation, everything in between. And now we're in a role where not only do we have to write WRITE laws, but in some cases we have to write RIGHT, correct? Did I spell that right?
Yeah.
You did.
We got to correct laws that were created to harm us. Yep. And it's a blessing, and I'm blessed to serve with you. Yeah. I sound like I'm wrapping up right now.
Well, I know you gotta
that you
go.
Still have your artistry, and I know you have to go. But we know that you're just transitioning to a more extensive role into getting in the community, getting the communities ready for this tsunami that's coming. Someone coined, and I don't know if it's Reverend Finley that did it, but he said that there's a silver tsunami coming. Like, they were talking about seasoned people aging out, aging more, and like the needs. And then we have our young people that are coming through. I do this out loud. I use my social media to show people the good, the bad, the ugly, because I don't want to be in this role forever. Like, I give most positions I take now for the last 12 years, 3 to 5 years, like, because I don't want to stay so long that, one, I'm blocking an opportunity for somebody else to come and do it. And two, I want to get out the way. I want to be what I didn't have growing up, what I didn't have as a college student, what I didn't have as a single mom. Like, I need to do that. And sometimes we got to be self-aware to say, it's our time to move. So what I've been trying to do is say, if someone was to say, what's a day in the life of Councilman Arthur, can you walk us through that? So people can see, because somebody might think, okay, you get up, you meditate, that's it. But you do a great deal. And even if today you make the decision to continue to do your art, or you go and make a performance and then come to a council meeting, like I go do other stuff and come to a council meeting. But can you walk people through what a typical day for you
MTV
is like?
Cribs, let's go.
Including the family. Yeah.
Well, I feel like as Metro Council, we were talking about this a bit earlier, you got to stay on your toes because every day could be totally different.
Yeah.
But usually the day consists of taking the kids to school. I teach at Simmons College of Kentucky, so I teach classes. I'm reading, writing, researching policy nonstop. We might have a council meeting. I try to work as much as I can during the day and be productive, have meetings with constituents, phone calls, emails, bunch of busy work. I pick the kids up, and then I try my best once I pick the kids up to totally, I don't totally tune out everything, but like that time is important because it keeps you sane, it keeps you grounded.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about the why. Of course, our ancestors are our why, but also the future ancestors, our descendants are our why. Because when we leave this world, they got to pick up everything that we left behind, and they got to figure out how to navigate it from the climate crisis that's going to be way different in the future, to the housing crisis, violence,
poverty,
war, like the issues that our kids are going to have to deal with when we gone off this earth. Sometimes it drives me into a really deep, dark depression.
Same. And
it's hard to get out of. But when you cherish those moments and present time with them, it keeps me going. It refuels me. So spending time with the kids.
Do you cook?
I cook. I was going to say, I cook. That helps also.
Girl, you got one up on me. I will order the stuff out of some Waffle House.
She gonna kill me for saying this, but I cook more than my lady. I love her, and she holds it down. She holds me down.
Well, that's what I was gonna say too. Spending time with the lady, that keeps you grounded.
Absolutely. We go to concerts.
Yes.
We travel, take random trips.
Yes.
Does black man to black man how important, and I know how you're going to answer this, but I want the public to hear this. How important is it to have a good woman to stand beside you while you go out here and literally Superman the world every day, right? Somebody who can sit there and be with you when you take the cape off. How important is that to the work that you do?
Well, let me start with what you just said, that she's Superwoman, and I'm blessed to have found a Superwoman. She's a psychologist.
Yes.
And you were talking about, the work you wanted to get into and how you're, one of few black people who are in that profession. Yeah. She's one of few black people in that profession.
Man, shout out to her, man.
Veteran affairs offices she's worked in, psychology field that she's worked in. She's, a very small minority of people that exist in that profession. So I'm blessed to know her. She's taught me a lot about mental health, emotional health, psychological health, helped me get through a lot of issues that I've dealt with. And we learn from each other. We challenge each other. And it's important to have that person, because when that day ends and you sitting with all the feelings you done dealt with, you got cussed out by a constituent, your students didn't show up, your toddler was struggling to go to bed, having that person, that partner that you can just recharge with is really key to sustaining your life and keeping you grounded and keeping you level-headed. So I'm thankful to I found my person. My lifelong person.
That's beautiful. And speaking of future, what kind of advice would you offer to future Metro Council? Right, new people coming in, the way Metro Council is going to change with different partisan rules and whatnot. Like, what's your advice to the future on your way out?
Build coalitions. That means not only with other Metro Council members who vote, but also with the voters outside of Metro Council.
Right.
Yeah.
Understanding that there are groups who care about issues that you're working on. And I would say most of the policy we've been able to pass, there was always a constituency that helped work on it, whether it was coming up with petitions, having town halls, listening sessions, building coalitions on both sides is really key.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you also want to understand the opposition.
That's right. So
when we passed the anti-displacement law, I had to talk with people who were totally against it to understand what their concerns were. And somebody who, you'd probably be surprised, who taught me something really important about politics, Representative Jason Nemus.
Wow.
I sat on a commission with him for a few months, and I'll never forget something he kept saying when we had debates. He would offer something. He would say, will that get your vote? And if they said no, he shut them out. Because if there's nothing I can do to get your vote, you just wasting your time. You wasting your breath. You wasting my time. You wasting my breath. So he was willing to work with people on a really basic level of what would it take to get your vote. Yeah. And I always had appreciated that with him. Money's calling Edwin.
Shout out to Edwin. I hope you watching this too. Yeah.
But build coalitions, talk to people who are different from you.
Yeah.
And find work-life balance.
Yes.
If I did not have my family, my kids, my homies, if I didn't have a balance and a life outside of Metro Council, I'd probably go crazy.
Yeah.
I feel you.
Let me close with some remarks that I want to say. You are my brother in this work and the movement. Whatever you need, I'm here. I see you. You inspire me. You inspire me to run. You had my back when I applied. And you stuck with that, and you said, look, if they keep voting, I'm going to have to do the other thing. I get it.
I forgot about that.
You taught me how that a lot of this takes some compromise, and it takes talking to the other side. I'm inspired by you, and every move you make has been amazing. And I got your back in this role, in whatever other role we got in the community.
Thank you, sister. I appreciate that.
And I want more black men in these roles. I wouldn't be here without the love of my black father, even from that jail cell. So nothing I do is absent of black men in leadership. Sometimes I come off so strong that people think that I'm like, oh, I just need women. I love my black men. I've been on some dark-ass roads with black men. Right. But I love them, and I would never change that. And just knowing that even my family is inspired. And a lot of them are like, Mama, why you don't give up on politics? But then they seen what we've been able to do together and the way that we communicate with each other, and it's inspired them. And I have a daughter, my third daughter, Mitez's partner, Shamari, is getting her master's degree in psychology, and she's wanting to be a school counselor because she saw, like I saw, there's not a lot of representation. So this is the gift that keeps giving. Whatever role you choose to have going forward, you know you got our support. It ain't nothing but a call.
I help you bury the body, brother.
You know what?
Metaphorically.
The body of work. The body of work.
No, I don't know what's ever going to come out of his mouth. I don't. But it's nothing but real. It's nothing but love. And thank you for giving us this time.
Absolutely.
And when you got something that you're working on, I love the faith. What I've been telling people, even in my vocal work, is we cannot leave out the faith community. Faith is a grounding principle for a lot of people, whatever you worship or choose to do. So I love how you're engaging that, because really a lot of social justice activism and work started in the faith community and the way the churches have been pushed away. So I love how what you're doing, not just with, when I say faith, I mean Simmons College, I mean all the other things. That academia and that community is so important to have together. Saturday Academy is one of the things Dr. Hudson used to do. I want to do those again. We have people, Ben's partner wants to work on civics education. We need more of that. We need more of our folks to understand we wouldn't need all the money in these races if we have people who are going to show up consistently to the polls. Once we show we have that, we can delete some of this money. We won't ever get rid of it, but we can start to reduce that. And I think your race has shown that. My races have shown that. So I want to do more of that work. That's the participatory democracy is what we have right now until we're able to tear it all down and redo it. This is what we are working with. And the fact that you're willing to come to college, go back out and take what you learn and apply it to community. That's why I'm here too. So thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
I wanted to say too, before we leave, that because I know a lot of people feel like you, especially like good people. Like some days we have those, apprehensions of the future for our kids, but what always moves me, and I never worry about that, is because we're creating, right? The leaders like us, we're creating. Like you got 6 kids, you got what, 2, right? And I got 1 biologically, 200.
You got 200.
200 unbiologically, a couple thousand,
I was a Rolling Stone because he balled so hard.
Because I balled so hard, right? So, but there are representations, they're reflections rather of us. So if we got 200 and 201 plus your 6 plus your 2, then that's already, see what I'm saying? That's already a movement, bro. So I'm not worried about our kids. You know what I mean?
I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that. Of our young people.
I would leave my hand.
They're like, how you feel about being on council? I said, I love it. I'm learning. But I would trust my life and everything in the hands of some middle schoolers before because they're leaving, they're going off life. Some of these folks have an ego and a resume to build. I would trust my life with these young people. I trust them. I'm just trying to be a resource to them right now while I'm here. And it's our turn.
Yeah, we got to show them the way.
It's our turn.
We just got to keep showing them the way. And they have no choice but to follow in those steps.
Right.
It's just speaking of her kids, like, you know, they never want to come to the events and the community.
They
always tired. They always sitting in the back with their, you know, phone. But I see in 10, 15, 20 years, they're going to be sitting in the same seats as their mama being like, dang, I remember when I used to hate coming to this. Now I have no choice, because you're going to get put in a space where you got to make a choice. You either going to man up or you're going to fade to the back. And ain't no Shamika's kids going to fade to the back. Ain't no JeCorey kid going to fade to the back. True. Ain't none of Sensei's kid going to fade to the back, because we ain't taught you to do that. Right. And so they just, you know, I have no fear of the future, because I know our future's in good hands.
Oh,
amen.
Yes, man, I appreciate you being
here,
so brother.
Much.
Yeah, man, go get that money, man.
Go get that money. Make the money.
Peace and love, y'all.